Welcome to Wii U Quick Reviews, the show where I review any Wii U game as quickly as possible. Today's game is... Let's get started. Modern FPS games are a dime a dozen, so it makes sense that at least a few would have slipped their way onto the Wii U. That means it was no surprise when Activision's multi-platform title, 007 Legends, hit the console in 2012. The game's main selling point was its story, advertised as a culmination of James Bond's best moments. In reality, it ends up being an unfocused mess of 6 stories, all of which are never fully explained or realized. They each get 2 or 3 missions dedicated to them, and they're framed using the opening of Skyfall. For some reason, except when it doesn't and randomly just changes the story, but essentially, everything is just one big hallucination that Bond is having while he's drowning during the intro to Skyfall. Speaking of Bond, he's kept consistent throughout the game, played by Daniel Craig in every portion. This was likely purely due to licensing and nothing more. Much like the story, gameplay mechanics are also spread thin. It's mainly a standard FPS game, but there's vehicle segments, melee encounters, stealth mechanics, and puzzle-solving mechanics. And each has their own little problems. The vehicle segments require you to press a ridiculous number of buttons at once, and give no sense of spatial awareness. The melee encounters are all just glorified QuickTime events, nothing more. The puzzle-solving breaks up the pace, but it's a bit too invasive. You'll essentially just search a room for way too long before going right back to shooting things. And finally, the stealth in this game is fundamentally broken. The game encourages you to be stealthy and even requires it occasionally, but the controls are not built for it. There's no precision in movement, and ultimately any attempt at stealth will fail and simply waste your time. Not to mention that there is assisted aiming, and it's terrible. Anyway, let's hop over to pros and cons. 007 Legends features graphics that would have been acceptable in 2008, 4 years prior to its release. There are constant frame drops, subpar AI, faulty aiming and faulty controls in general, and a generally modern playstyle that makes it blend in with the crowd of FPS titles. It does offer a classic mode which features medkits instead of regenerating health, as well as multiple difficulties and mission objectives, but none of it does enough to mix up the FPS formula. However, the game does excel in its amazingly extensive multiplayer mode. There's a variety of game modes, maps, characters, and weapons. The problem is that every gameplay issue with single player holds true. But if you ever want to play multiplayer for some reason, this game's got cheat codes. And I should sure hope that 007 Legends is not headed to the Switch. Let's just finish this up already. Overall, 007 Legends is a licensed disaster. Steer far away from it.